welcome to Fantasy Booms and Busts, Week 4. My name's CJ Galino.
And I'm Sam Bloomquist. CJ, let's talk football.
All right, Sam, I really like Tony Romo. The Cowboys are playing the Chargers, who have a very mediocre defense, and everyone knows Romo could have flashes of greatness. He has 6 TDs this year, and only with 1 interception shows that he's really trying to improve on his decision-making. And Des Bryant's been playing really well. So I think Des Bryant and Tony Romo connection versus the Chargers D can really work out well for fantasy owners.
Not going to lie, CJ, I've never been the biggest Cowboys fan, but I do agree with you on Tony Romo. He's playing like a champ. He has to maintain his playing in order to keep his starting job with the Cowboys because through the years he really hasn't been consistent, and Des Bryant really is going off with him. I like the combination they have next week against the Chargers. A quarterback on the other end of the spectrum, however, is Colin Kaepernick. I'm not a fan of him lately, CJ. I'm starting him in my league, and he is not doing me justice. He got shut down the last 2 weeks against the Seahawks, which is understandable because of their massive defense. But he only had 127 yards in the air and 3 interceptions. But last week against the Colts, he had 150 yards with 1 interception. And how do you explain that? The Colts are not a dominant defense, and it's just sort of, does Colin Kaepernick have what it takes, or is he going to be stuck in his sophomore slump?
Well, Kaepernick's a freak athlete. I mean, everything that guy does worked out for him last year. Alex Smith was playing fantastic football and happened to get injured, which really gave Kaepernick an opening to get that starting spot, which is unfortunate for Smith, which worked out great for Kaepernick and the 49ers, making it as far as they did. I don't think that he's going to have a sophomore slump just because of his pure athleticism, and I think his football IQ is high enough that he can continue to compete at the level that he is at right now. Someone that I really like, that a lot of people I know don't, and I was pretty skeptical about him at first, Bilal Powell. Bilal Powell's not the most talented running back in the world. He's the running back for the Jets. He was splitting carries with Chris Ivory, but now that he's going to get the majority of carries, and he's also coming off his career best game with over 100 yards, I think Powell can really continue to put up numbers for fantasy owners if they need a running back because of their bye week. And they're playing the Titans defense, and the Titans defense is nothing special. There's definitely going to be running holes for Bilal Powell to go in. So I think that if your running back's on a bye, or you have, say, someone like Sproles who's been decreasing in his productivity, that Powell could be someone that you could look to put up numbers.
I agree with the point you made about the Titans defense. They played the Chargers last week. They let Ronnie Brown and Ryan Matthews squeeze a couple through, and they're not dominant running backs in the game. But I wouldn't pick Bilal Powell as a consistent running back for your team. He played the Buffalo Bills last week, and me coming from a diehard Bills fan, I know their defense isn't the greatest ever. And the Jets really had just a terrific day when they played Buffalo. So you can't take his greatest game of his career as something to go off of for the future. But we'll have to see in the next few weeks if Bilal Powell does really turn into the running back you're making him out to be. Someone who also is not doing their best in their career is Dwayne Bowe. So far this entire season, he has 9 total receptions for 90 total yards. He had 1 touchdown, and it was against the Cowboys. And Alex Smith can throw, so there is no reason why Dwayne Bowe shouldn't be getting a majority of the passes. Sure, he's covered by the defenses because he's a big name and everybody knows who he is. But with Andy Reid's offense, he likes to run, and Alex Smith doesn't seem to be hitting him because last week against the Eagles, he had a total of 4 yards, and the Kansas City was just going all over the Eagles' defense.
The thing about Dwayne Bowe, I mean, he put up 0.4 points in my league last week. And that's someone that, for me, he's my number 2 receiver, but I know a lot of teams where he's their number 1 guy in fantasy. And 0.4 points from your second receiver, and if he's your first receiver, that's even worse. He's a huge target. He's fast. He's got a great vertical. He has awesome hands. He just isn't, for some reason, I don't know if him and Smith are just having a communication issue, but he's just not getting open like he can. So in order for that to change, him and Smith has got to work it out, or if they don't, the Chiefs aren't going to be as successful as they are right now. Mm-hmm. Someone that I really like that we talked about last week is DeAndre Hopkins. DeAndre Hopkins has crazy potential. The guy is unbelievably fast, great lateral movement, has a great vertical, could catch anything, and especially now that Andre Johnson's not 100%, if he doesn't play, DeAndre Hopkins will likely be going against Richard Sherman this weekend against Seattle. And Sherman's a great cornerback, and I think this could really be a coming-out party for DeAndre Hopkins. I know when people think that Hopkins, rookie's going against their number 1 corner, you would think maybe he's not a good guy to play. But I think that Hopkins putting up the numbers that he has and showing the flashes of greatness that he has so far this year, I think that Hopkins can really show the entire NFL community that if he goes up against his number one cornerback, that he could really put up significant number one receiver numbers.
Mm-hmm. And the Seahawks are just waiting to be exploited. They've got 3 weeks of film the Texans have to watch to see where the holes are in the Seahawks defense. No one has found these holes, and it's up to the Texans to be the ones to find it. Maybe DeAndre Hopkins is the key to finding all these holes, because Richard Sherman, yes, he's a great cornerback, and the Seahawks have been shutting down everybody they've been playing. But how long will that go? I think the Seahawks and the Texans will have quite the interesting game this week. Somebody I do like is Jordan Cameron off of the Cleveland Browns, the tight end. This week, after a stunning trade from Indianapolis, their starting running back went to Indianapolis, Trent Richardson. Everybody sees him as the best player on the team. And then also their quarterback sustained an injury and had to leave, didn't even go to the game on Sunday. And so they lost their starting quarterback and their starting running back, but they started their third string quarterback, Brian Hoyer, terrific athlete, 269 yards, 3 touchdowns thrown to Jordan Cameron. With no starting quarterback, no starting running back, their tight end still got 3 whole touchdowns against the Vikings. A typical defense. They are 0-3, but they are a pretty good defense. And the only thing I'd say to watch out for Jordan Cameron is he's on the Browns, so you have to wait a couple more weeks to see if he really is the real deal and if the Browns can keep up with all these big numbers with him.
The thing about Jordan Cameron, he's a fantastic athlete, but like you said, he's on the Cleveland Browns. And right now, especially, the Cleveland Browns have nobody. Jordan Cameron is the sole threat on that offense right now, especially with Brandon Weeden not even playing. They skipped over Jason Campbell. They just gave the job to Brian Hoyer. And yeah, it worked out this week, but that can't work out forever, especially with the lack of talent they have at the receiver position. So Jordan Cameron is great, but I think, like you said, we'll have to wait a few weeks to see if he's the real deal. Someone that I don't like is Darren Sproles. Darren Sproles, I picked him in my fantasy league. I thought that he was going to have a really good year. He has crazy potential. The guy is a freak athlete, but he's not even the leading rusher for his team. He doesn't even have, not only does he not have the most carries, he doesn't have the most yards. And a lot of people draft him in fantasy for his receiving ability, but he has under 200 receiving yards in 3 games. So he's not even giving you fantasy numbers like that. And that's just someone that I think that you could afford to. I wouldn't drop him because of his potential, but if you could afford not to start him, I wouldn't.
Yes, Darren Sproles has always been playing sort of the flex role on my team because, yes, he is a running back, but he plays more of a receiving role for the Saints, like you said. And for a running back, you really want them to be rushing all over the field, getting in the goal line carries, the third down carries, and all of those sort of situations. And Darren Sproles just simply isn't getting any of that. When Mark Ingram is healthy, the third downs and the touchdowns are going to Mark Ingram. And when he's not there, it's Pierre Thomas this year. So there seems to be a change in how the Saints run their offense concerning Darren Sproles.
Yeah, it should be an interesting week in fantasy football, Sam.
Yes, it should.
That does it for Week 4 Fantasy Booms and Busts. We hope to see you next week.